A few things about me. I was born in the Midwest, a place that's neither east or west, north or south. I'm the middle of 5 kids. I guess you could say I've been in the middle my whole life. I started in the middle, now I'm here, performing at the end of the Charlotte Boom Fringe Festival. I grew up in the cornfields of Missouri, which is why I sprouted up so tall, so that I could get a peek over the stalks and take a look at the world that lies beyond. I'm 6'2", technically 6'2.5". I used to say I was 6'3", but my 6'4" friend called BS. And for a long time, I tried to make myself smaller for others. I fall quickly for anyone with a generous laugh and overly confident dance moves. Notice I didn't say good dance moves. I cry at movies with long monologues. I too take a long time to say anything. When I'm drunk or high, my eyes don't focus so well. The same for my heart when I'm in love. I dye my beard and I paint my nails because one of the worst things anyone can call me is boring. I don't put a case on my phone, which makes my friends really nervous. They say I'm raw dogging life. But you know, I've only broken my phone once, much fewer times than I've broken my heart, and I don't put a case on that either. I realized at an early age that if I could make you laugh, you were less likely to laugh at me. I'm good at telling stories, but I tend to shorten them because I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I'm anxious for when you start looking bored, and I think we're okay so far. When I visit a new city, I scour the internet to find the best burger, but I've still not found one better than Kuma's Corner in Chicago. I don't like personality tests, because I don't like to be boxed in. If you insist I'm one thing, I will try my hardest to prove to you that I'm not. I'm stubborn like that, and it's probably my Taurus sun. I'm an open book, but I worry that it's just because I want so badly to be read that I would crack my own spine just to fall open to get your attention, that if my words could somehow leap off the page, some of them might accidentally land in your heart, and you would have no choice but to take me with you wherever you go, that I'm just a character in a story waiting for a reader to validate my existence, despite every Instagram reel reminding me that my worth is found in myself, including the reels that I make. Hi, my name is Adrian. My parents chose that because they weren't sure if I'd be a boy or a girl, and I'm still not sure. Gender is a playground where I can explore, let my imagination run wild with dreams and possibilities. I'm a queer, nonbinary, pansexual, polyamorous switch. Because I hate making decisions. Because I hate feeling fenced in. Because I hate making my world smaller and more manageable when it was meant to be a vast, wild, ungovernable wilderness. I stay on the path when I hike, but I don't like to do that when I love. There are too many wildflowers worthy of my attention, too many views worthy of my breath, too many mountains worthy of my stamina. And I realize all those could be innuendos, but I mean them in a wholesome way this time. The divide between friendship and romance is a thin, hazy line I'll ping-pong back and forth as long as my heart retains its shape. I date my compulsions, but I'm married to my contradictions. I threw out my label maker years ago because the ribbons were too small, and because it wasn't helping me find all the pieces of myself that I'd misplaced just trying to rearrange my own matter to fit inside containers that were never equipped to handle my vastness. And the multitudes in me honors the multitudes in you. The greatest gift we can give each other is to remain curious as we explore each other's galaxies. So, strap in, motherfuckers. Because we're about to boldly go where angels fear to tread, into the infinity of our humanity. And maybe we'll find novas exploding, in awe at the beauty of their destruction. Or maybe we'll find black holes, pieces of our past just trying to rip the light from our being. But just maybe, we'll find new worlds being born. As we marvel in each other's stories, whether birth or destruction, the journey is worth the risk, because this is where change begins. And this is how understanding is formed, and this is how we make our hard world slightly softer. Thank you. Thank you all so much. So like I said, my name's Adrian Parrish. I am a poet, storyteller, and comedian. And so what you just heard, hopefully you recognize as a poem. I'm gonna tell some stories, and anytime you laugh, well, that's comedy, baby. And I'm super excited to be doing my one-person show here at Boom. I have loved this festival for years. since I moved here in like 2016. And I performed last year. I did like a 15-minute show. So I'm super excited to do a full hour show, and I'm super excited you're here. So thanks so much for being here. I love Boom. I love this type of vibe. You know, I like really like niche kind of underground artsy things. I don't know if you can tell that by my everything about me. But I really love, you know, kind of like the underground stuff that's not mainstream, that maybe not everyone knows about. And I love that, you know, and I know I look like I'm the type of person who would love that, who is excited and loves doing art inside an old Chico's, where you can still faintly smell the Estee Lauder in the air. But I'm super excited, and you know, I've kind of always been that way. You know, even growing up, I was into stuff that other people weren't into, and it sounds kind of pretentious, I know, but the like the bands I listened to, they're probably bands that you might not have heard of. Bands with names like Delirious and Skillet, Audio Adrenaline. I think some of you know where I'm going with this. But if those names don't sound familiar to some of you, it's actually not because I'm some type of hipster god. It's because I could have summed up the type of music I listen to in 2 words. Christian rock. Yeah, that's right. I was obsessed with this music that was a subculture of a subculture. It was music for when you were feeling angsty, but you still really loved Jesus. And it was music that borrowed so much from its secular counterparts. You see, in my world, there were 2 types of music. There was Christian music, and there was secular music, which you know as music. And we didn't listen to that secular music. I wasn't always sure why, but I was pretty sure it had something to do with sex or possibly Satan worship. But you know, the Christian bookstores, which are the people who dealt us our Christian music, they would have handy charts to let us know what Christian band sounded the most like its secular counterpart. They'd be like, do you like Jimmy Eat World? Why not try Reliant K? Do you like Weezer? Here's a band called MXPX. Are you looking for a less vulgar, less talented Eminem? Here's a white Christian rapper named KJ52, named after Jesus' miracle of the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And this was my shit, a word I never would have used. But I was super nerdy into it. And I don't know if you know many nerdy people. I'm guessing you probably do. I don't know if you know many nerdy people, or you know very religious people. There's a lot of like similarities between the two. Like if you've ever had a conversation with a seminary student about Immaculate Conception, or talked to a Star Wars fan about midichlorians, it's a very similar conversation. There's a lot of similarities. I can tell you as someone who actually went to Bible college, and is also a huge Star Wars fan, that there's a lot of similarities between the two. Like, they both have pretty toxic fan bases. There's a lot of discussion over what's canon and what isn't. Like, I grew up fundamental Baptist. Those are like original trilogy only Star Wars fans. You know, but some of my friends grew up Catholic, and they believe in like the entire extended universe of Christianity. And that's beautiful too. But you know, I was a super nerd about it. I could tell you who produced albums by Switchfoot and Jars of Clay. I could tell you which of the 4 lead singers of the Newsboys was the front man on any particular album. And just like all the secular kids could quote the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song, I could quote, I saw a man with a tat on his big fat belly that wiggled around like marmalade jelly. Took me a while to catch what it said because I had to match the rhythm of his belly with my head. Jesus saves is what it raved in a typical tattoo green. He stood on a box in the middle of a city and he claimed he had a dream. For those of you who don't know, that's from a song called Jesus Freak by a band called DC Talk, which was basically like the Smells Like Teen Spirit of Christian rockers in the 90s. And so I had all this knowledge, and I had all this, you know, this information that, like, honestly wasn't super practical. Like, you don't have a lot of chances to flex your Christian rock knowledge in conversations. It's not a big category on Jeopardy, you know, if that's your thing. But it did come in handy once when I met this girl. And I met her in church, which is the only place I ever could have met a girl. And she was visiting some friends. She was from out of town. She was visiting some friends for a few weeks. And she actually met my sisters first. And they invited her to go bowling with us, which was a very good, wholesome Midwestern Christian activity. And so I go to pick her up, and I have my sisters in the car and one of our friends. And she gets in the car and introduces herself, says her name's Charity. And I think, she's kind of cute. And we start driving, I start driving, and she almost immediately makes fun of my driving. And I was like, do I have a crush on this girl already? So we go bowling with our youth group, and it's super fun. But I'm playing it pretty cool, I don't want to seem like I'm too interested. But we go out afterwards, and I suggest we split a pizza. And then on the way home, I'm like, maybe I can impress her, turn on some music, some Christian music. So I start playing it, and she says, is that Third Day, aka Christian Pearl Jam? And I said, yes, it is. We start talking, and I soon find out that she is also this Jesus-freak Christian rocker, just like me. And we start talking about bands that we love, and albums that we're super into, and shows that we've been to. And before you knew it, our conversation was taking up the entire car ride. And my friend and my sisters, just like were sitting there in silence because they didn't have anything to add because, I don't know, they listened to dumb secular music or something, I don't know. And so we're having this whole conversation, and a bond starts to form between us. And then over the next few weeks, we connected a few more times. If we were in the same room, we would seek each other out. We talked at church. We flirted while we both led VBS. It was very sexy. And then the time came for her to go back to where she lived, go back to out of town. And when she left, we exchanged information. And she wrapped her arms around my neck and whispered, "Take care," in your ear. And when you're a dorky Baptist teenager, that was sexy as hell. So we stay in touch, long distance, and a relationship starts to form. And we get to the point where we want to express how we feel about each other. And back in the day, we would do that with mix CDs. Anyone out here make some mix CDs? Yeah. Which is really hard to do within the realm of Christian music only. Like, it's just hard to tell someone how you feel about them with songs centered around the blood of Jesus Christ. So, we turned to our secular counterparts, which we felt a little guilty about at first. But songs like Don't Wanna Miss a Thing by Aerosmith just felt right. And it didn't feel like we were becoming worse people. We ended up moving to the same area, and, the relationship progressed. We got to first base. Yeah, we got to second base. We stayed on second base for a very long time. We experimented with third base, but with clothes on, we were good Christian kids. And then eventually we got married. And then we moved away from the Christian bubble that we had grown up in and the Christian college that we went to. And we gradually started listening to more secular music. We listened to hip hop and rap and rock. I know, it sounds like my mom in the front row gasping. And folk. And we found all this new music. And along the way, we also started meeting these new secular people. We met people who were atheists. We met people who smoked pot. We met people who, I hope you saved your biggest gasp for this one. We met people who were queer. Yeah, I know. And they weren't the monsters that we had been led to believe they were. They were kind, loving, caring people. In fact, maybe more kind and loving than the Christians that we grew up with. I know, it's hard to believe. But we started questioning the boxes we had put people in. And we put them in these specific boxes to protect ourselves. And we put them in these boxes so that we could better understand who they were. And we thought, if we just kept them in those boxes and the way we understood them, we would be safe. We would be doing what we were supposed to do with our life. But then gradually we realized those boxes weren't actually helpful or weren't actually true. And then after we thought about that a little bit more, we started thinking about the boxes that we'd been given, the boxes that other people put us in, the boxes we put ourselves in. Because when you're born, you're given a box. And you're told that this box is the most significant truth about you. That everything you are, that everything you do, it all relates back to this box. And at first that might seem plausible. This is your first time being alive and everything. And you accept the reality that's been given to you. But then everyone, your family, your school, society, starts telling you everything that goes in this box. And they start piling all this shit in this box that you didn't ask for. It starts getting heavy. And before you have time to really think about this box or consider it, you're given another box. Now this box is very important, you're told. This box has eternal significance. If you don't accept this box, you're going to burn forever. And you try to carry that box. It's really heavy, especially for someone so small. But again, before you have time to think it over, or to question that box, you're given yet another box. Now this box, this has been in your family for generations. Passed down from one person to the next. And it's also really heavy, especially on top of all the other boxes. And there are a whole bunch of little boxes inside that you think you should probably unpack. Because you think, if you could just go through the boxes, maybe there's some good stuff there that you could pull out, and that would be helpful. And you could get rid of what's not useful, what's not serving you. Maybe you could throw away the things that are holding you down, but instead of that time and attention, you're just given more fucking boxes. Boxes piling on top of each other, boxes on boxes on boxes, expectations of what you're supposed to do, who you're supposed to be, what you want, what you need, and what you're supposed to do with all the fucking boxes. Because some of these boxes you're supposed to carry with you wherever you go, some of them you're supposed to hide away, and some of them you pull out at certain times. Some of them you end up wearing, which really impairs your view. Some of them leave you trapped, unable to move anywhere. All of them were not asked for by you. You didn't select any of them. And they all come with rules you don't understand and with expectations that just give you anxiety. Until you start to wonder, what if you didn't have all the boxes? What if you could go through them? Pull out what's helpful, get rid of what's not? What if you could travel more lightly? What if you could live more freely, exist more openly? What if these boxes were never yours to begin with? So Charity and I moved away from the Christian bubble we grew up in. And that conversation we had on the ride home where we talked about Christian rock, that kind of became a foundation for our relationship. Because we would go on these long drives, sometimes to visit our family over holidays, sometimes on road trips, and we would have these long conversations. Sometimes they would still be about music, although less about Christian rock. Sometimes they would be about the books and TV shows and movies that we were into. Sometimes they were just silly road trip games. And sometimes they were deep conversations about life. And we were going on one of these trips, one of these rides, and we started talking about clothes. Because she had just found this brand of clothing called Wildfang. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Wildfang. It's a great brand of clothing. And she was like really obsessed with their clothes. And she'd shown them to me, and I was like, these are really cool clothes. I really like them. And we're having this conversation, and I was like, yeah, I would love to wear some of these clothes. And, it's a little bit of a pricier company. And she said, yeah, maybe we can get some of the clothes for you for like Christmas or like for your birthday. And I said, well, yeah, I don't really think I should wear those clothes. Like, I don't think those are for me. And she said, well, why not? And I said, well, the models on the website, they're like butch lesbians or like, androgynous, non-binary looking people. And like those clothes just aren't really for me. And she was like, well, that's not really how clothes works. Like you can wear whatever you want, as long as it's something you're comfortable in. And I was like, yeah, I know. But, as someone who was raised a white man and has learned some things over the years, not to mansplain the entire history of Western civilization to you, but, white men have often come into the space that isn't theirs and taken it up, and that's not really something I want to do. She was like, it's great that you feel that way. But again, that's not how clothes work. You can wear whatever you want. Also, have you considered that you might be non-binary? And I thought about it and I said no. For really the same reason that we talked about the clothes. Again, we knew some non-binary people, and again, they were like masculine assigned female people, or they were like very androgynous, people. And I am a tall, bearded, balding person, and no one's really questioning my gender identity. And I said, no, I'm not, I don't really look non-binary. And she said, well, you can't really look non-binary. That's kind of the whole thing. Like, non-binary is anything. I was like, yeah, I know. And she said, also, like, you've always gotten along better with women than men. And this was a conversation we'd had many times over the years. Because growing up, I'd always gotten along better with girls. I had a bunch of friends who were girls. They would call me one of the girls. To the point where, because I also had crushes on a lot of these girls. And the guys I was friends with would be like, oh man, you got put in the friend zone. You're in the friend zone now. And I was like, have you been to the friend zone? It is so fun there. Like, we giggle and we gossip, we have these cute little drinks. It is a lot of fun in the friend zone. You don't know what you're missing. And I would try to relate to the guys. And, growing up in the cornfields of Missouri, I was tall and I got good at basketball, which did help me relate to them. Because a lot of them were really into sports. And I was not that into sports. You might be able to tell by the way I say sports. But I would look up like the standings of like whatever sport was in season or whatever, and I would kind of memorize who was doing well, and I would look up like stats of like players and stuff so that I could have conversations with guys. Ironically, I got into sports because of that. But I was trying really hard to relate to them. And then even as I got older and I went into college, I had this like just douchebag of a roommate who he saw all these pictures I had. So I had all these pictures with my friends who were girls, and he was like, how do you have so many pictures with girls? And I was this like acne-faced, nerdy Bible college student. And like he thought he was the shit because like he wore Calvin Klein or something. And he was like, how are you friends with all these girls? And I was like, I don't know, they're just my friends. And then at one point he like started dating someone, and I became like besties with his girlfriend, because that's what I did. And at one point he asked her, he was like, why do girls like Adrian so much? And to tell you what type of guy he was, she was like, I don't really want to tell you because I'm afraid you'll use it to get girls. And he was like, no, I won't. And she was like, I don't know, talking to Adrian is just like talking to another girl. And he comes back and tells me this as if like it's supposed to make me feel bad. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's what I've gotten all my life. So I was thinking about all these things as Charity asked me if I'm non-binary, and I said, maybe. And she said, what if we used some new pronouns? We could just try them out and see how they feel. And I was like, you mean like they, them? And she was like, yeah, we can have some of our close friends use them and see if it feels natural. And if so, then we can go from there. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. We drive a little bit farther down the road, and she says, there's something I want to tell you. And she sounds a little nervous. I was like, okay. And she said, I'm bisexual. And I was like, yeah, I kind of figured you were. And then she said, really? I've been holding that in for like a year. I didn't know. I was nervous to tell you. And I reminded her that like, we would go to parties and she'd have a few drinks and she'd start hitting on our female friends. And I was like, I figured there was something behind that. And it was really funny because we had this kind of ongoing joke because we had made friends with a couple of lesbian couples. And it felt really natural just because of how I got along with women. And we had kind of this joke that we were sort of an honorary lesbian couple. So here we were. I came out as non-binary. She came out as bisexual. We were like, oh. I was like, oh, we are kind of a lesbian couple, aren't we? And she said, yeah, we really are. The poet said, a word is a eulogy to the thing it signifies. And I felt that. When you said the word man, the word died between your lips and my ears, and I don't know what you meant. I remember the disappointed look on my father-in-law's face when he found out that I didn't know anything about cars or home repair or any of the other things he expected out of the man who was supposed to take care of his little girl. Spoiler alert, she was always better at those things than me anyway. I remember the hurt I felt when my friend said, hey, did you see the game? And I said, what game? And he said, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were a man. I remember the confusion I felt when my sister said, it just feels like you're trying to be something that you're not. And I wish I would have known what to say then, because I would have said that she was right. Because I was trying to be me. And on the road to self-discovery, there is no destination. It's all journey. The singer said, I insist upon my right to be multiple and upon the recognition of my multiplicity. And I felt that. The first time I heard a single person referred to as they, them, I was confused because all my life I've been taught that those pronouns were plural. But now I claim them as my own because I've come to realize that I am more than one thing. Not that I've written off the pieces of me that others might consider masculine. I once wrote, I pocket my masculinity like a charm and maybe wear it on occasion. And I felt that. It's still mine to use, such as it is. But after years of trying to find a box in which I fit, and always feeling like I've fallen short, my friend told me that I'd best fit in a box that just had my name as a label. And I felt that. A box as malleable and dynamic as I can be. The one constant being that it will not stay the same, yet it fits in a way that it's always been there. A shy potential friend, hiding in the shadows, waiting for love and encouragement to come into the light. So today, I'm trying my hardest to be fully me. Not quite a man, more than a man, kind of a man, all rolled into one. Embracing the chaos that is me, and hoping that you will do the same. Thank you. So yes, I came out as non-binary. And the pronouns I use now are I, me, mine. Those are the pronouns I use. First person pronouns, you might remember from 4th grade. Now, if you're talking about me, first of all, rude. But my pronouns are they, them, theirs. So please shit talk respectfully. And I changed my pronouns a few years ago. And I did it mainly to make you uncomfortable. Because, you know, if we're hanging out, eventually you're going to get them wrong, you monster. And you're going to feel a little weird about it, you know, if you're a good person. But, you know, I felt uncomfortable with my own identity for so long, and I was like, it's someone else's turn. There are people who get upset at strangers who have pronouns that are different than they're used to. They treat us like we just renamed Twitter or something. But these are insecure people with amateur nouns. All of mine have gone pro. Yes, I am non-binary, but some of my jokes do identify as dads. And being non-binary, it means different things to different people. For me, it means I feel like a 30-year-old woman trapped in the body of a middle-aged biker gang member. Yeah, on the outside, I'm Hell's Angels, but on the inside, I'm Charlie's Angels, baby. And you know, like some people in the gender non-conforming and trans and non-binary community, I do have some gender dysphoria and some body dysmorphia, which just means I don't always feel like I fit in societal norms, what it means to be a man or a woman. I don't always feel comfortable in my own skin, and I kind of wish I didn't have a penis. Now, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against penises or people who have penises. Some of my friends have penises. My dad has a penis, you know? I come from a long line of penis havers. Also, I'm a little gay, so I enjoy other people's penises. I just don't feel particularly connected to mine, you know, other than the fact that it dangles between my legs. And you might be able to tell that by the fact that I call it a penis. That's very medical, very, like, distant. Like, I have trouble calling it, like, a dick, you know? Like, that's a nickname, and we're not that close. Probably the closest I could get is Richard. And you know, which is one reason why I really don't understand people who send unsolicited dick pics. You know, again, a little gay, so I can appreciate a dick pic. But, you know, I've never been looking at mine and thought, you know, someone else needs to see this right now. Which is why I think dick pics should come like a CAPTCHA level of consent with them, you know? I think like you should get a text that's like, you have a dick pic, would you like to see it? And if so, can you identify all the traffic lights in this picture? And you know, overall, having a penis is fine. It's fine. I've looked into bottom surgery and there aren't a lot of options. Of course, I could get a vagina, which don't get me wrong, I'm pansexual, so I'm still a big fan. But you know, I do like being out in nature and like hiking. And one of the big benefits of having a penis is being able to pee in the woods. That's very nice. Of course, I could go like full kin down there and not have anything. But I don't know that the other Kins or the Barbies or the Allens, for that matter, would be into that. I don't know. What I'd really like is something practical, like something like a cup holder, you know? Because you don't always have one when you need one. It'd be nice to just, right there, you know? But sadly, technology isn't there yet. Another great option would be like a USB port, because, you know, you always need one of those. Which, like, the USB port is kind of the vagina of technology, if you think about it. You know, it keeps everything going. It's a universal connector. A lot of guys don't put it in right the first time. And, you know, and one advantage of having a penis, obviously, is sex. If you're into that sort of thing, which not everyone is, you know, it's not everyone's favorite genitalia. It's not the prettiest. I like to think of it as the, is Pepsi okay option. Through this process of exploring my identity, exploring my sexuality, I started thinking like maybe there was something there with my sexuality, because when I was born, I was really given only one choice. It wasn't really even a choice. I was just told that I was straight. So that was it. I was straight, obviously. And then obviously, along the way I met some gay people. And when I met gay men, I was kind of like, because of who I was with the way I got along with women and how I didn't relate to guys, and then I met gay men, and I was like, I don't know, that's a little different. And I was like, maybe, is that me? And then I still had a very black and white view of it, and I was like, no, I'm still attracted to women, because have you seen women? They're gorgeous. But then, also sometimes, I'd be talking to my guy friends, and I'd look at their lips and be like, what would it be like to kiss him? Not in a gay way, just like a bro to bro, casual smooch, what would that be like? And I was like, maybe there is something there. And so then I came out as queer, came out as pansexual, which if you don't know what pansexual means, that doesn't mean that I have a cooking fetish. I do, but that's just not what that means. But I came out as queer, and my parents weren't wild when I came out as queer, which was ironic, because all my life they've been trying to set me up with this guy named Jesus, who said he loved me, which sounds pretty gay to me. And he loved me so much that he died for me. That is a queer, dramatic love story, if I've ever heard one. Also, if you've seen pictures of him, hot long-haired guy in a dress. You can't tell me Jesus isn't queer. I've seen those strappy sandals. But that guy, he does not take rejection well. He's like, if you don't love me, you can burn in hell, literally. What is this, the queer ultimatum? Jesus, get a therapist. Work on your daddy issues. Although since he and his father are one, I guess they're just his issues. I don't know. I need a flannel graph to chart that out. I posted a little video of this on my Instagram a while ago, and apparently there's this lady that I used to go to church with who still follows me on Instagram, and she saw this video and she commented with the the emoji with just the single tear. But I felt a little bad. And so in deference to her, I will say, I don't really think that's Jesus. The hellfire and damnation part, I don't really think that's Jesus. I think that's an American Christianity thing that we've come up with. But I do absolutely believe that Jesus is queer, and I'm holding to that. And I know this because I actually went to Bible college, like I said. And there they taught us that Jesus was actually asexual, which is one of ours. Jesus puts the A in LGBTQIA, baby. That's not a plus at the end, that's a cross, bitch. So through this process, Charity and I ended up deciding that we really needed to explore these new identities and these new sexualities, the new things we'd learned about ourselves. Because again, those weren't choices that we were given. We weren't given choices of what our sexuality could look like. So about a year after we came out, we realized that we really needed to spend some time and explore that a little bit. So we opened up our relationship and we started dating other people. And through that process, she realized that she was actually more attracted to women, and she began to identify as a lesbian, which really fit with the whole we were a lesbian couple all along storyline, And I know, as a non-binary person, I know I look very I present very masculine. And I do that mainly for capitalism reasons. Because gender isn't real, but the gender pay gap definitely is. And I'm just trying to stay on the right side of that one. I love when I tell a joke that's so real that no one laughs, and they're just that's so true. Yeah. But I am still an honorary lesbian. Yes, thank you. That's the lesbians have approved of the rest of these jokes. Um, no, I am still an honorary lesbian. I have a lot of lesbian friends, and I've collected the necessary signatures. You need like 10. If you can get 10 lesbians to agree on something other than Tegan and Sarah and the L word, you really earned it. And I do drive a Subaru, which is, of course, the second most lesbian vehicle, the first being a U-Haul. And like I said, I was married to a lesbian for 18 years. So either it took her that long to realize that she was a lesbian or that I wasn't one. Either way, we're going to count that as a win. But, you know, it's been really fun exploring this new sexuality. And it's been fun, you know, getting on the dating apps, which are, admittedly, a bit of a roller coaster sometimes. Yeah, they're a mess. It's true. And so, you know, I've gone through my spells where, like, you know, I wasn't really dating people. And, you know, during those times, I kind of started to think of my penis as like, I know all of y'all wished I was done talking about my penis, but I have a couple more jokes and then we're done. But I started thinking of my penis as this, you know that box of cables that you have in your house? With like old computer cords and old phone chargers. And you don't think you're ever going to use those cables again, but you keep them around just in case. I'd started to think of my penis that way, you know. But I've been dating recently. It's been going well. I've been going to therapy for my body dysmorphia, which has really helped. Yeah, and it's been really nice because, you know, for a while I thought it was a shame that I felt this way about my penis and that I couldn't enjoy sex more because, well, I actually have a pretty big dick. And so, since, that's the last one, I promise. So yeah, since coming out as pansexual, you know, started dating, which has been really fun. But I have had those moments where you where you get to the end of the dating app. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has used the whole dating app. I don't know how much it happens with straight people. With queer people, like you get to the end and it's like the point where the dating app is like your well-intentioned straight friend. They're like, that's all the queer people I know. I'm sorry, I wish I could help you further. And you know, like as a pansexual person, sometimes we get hypersexualized. Like people will be like with pansexual or bisexual people, they'll be like, oh, y'all just want to have sex with everyone. And that's not fair, because some of us just want to have sex with anyone, you know? Like some of us aren't pansexual because we're horny. Some of us are pansexual because we've lowered our standards. So, you know, like you get to the end of the dating app and they're like, you know, you can change some of your preferences, you know? Like you can change your location preferences. And you're like, okay, I could date someone in South Carolina, I guess, you know? Like I'll try that. And then like maybe you'll see a few more people, but again, you get to the end and then it's like, okay, I could change my age preferences. I could date someone in their 20s, you know? I could let them work out their daddy issues, you know? Or I could date someone in my 60s. I could work out my daddy issues, you know? And like maybe you see a few more people, but you still run out, and then you're like, okay, fine, I'll date men, you know? And that's how you end up matching with Lindsey Graham on Grindr. But you know, more than dating, I've really been trying to focus more on self-love, which I think is really important. And also I think is very queer. And I think this because, you know, if you think about it, homosexuality is defined as being attracted to or loving the same sex as you. That means that regardless of your gender identity or your sexual orientation, loving yourself is an inherently homosexual act. So my advice to you is be gay, love yourself. Even the parts of you that are hard to love sometimes. And over the last few years, I've really leaned into trying to love more the person that I am and this body that doesn't always show up the way I want it to, that doesn't always look the way I wish it did. Because my body is a stranger to me, which sounds a bit dramatic, But the way I feel when I say it out loud helps me know that it's true. Sometimes I marvel in its abilities. The strength it finds when climbing a mountain, the accuracy with which it guides a ball through a hoop, the subtlety it hears in a well-recorded snare drum. Sometimes I savor the moments it can encompass, how it can open like a sail to a cool ocean breeze and collapse on a loved one in a prolonged hug. The warmth of my partner's skin in the dark quiet of the early morning. But other times, my body is a rental where I don't know if it's worth unpacking everything needed to live, compelled to spruce it up before I get too comfortable within. Sometimes it just feels distinctly other, and I don't know if that's just me, or if it's society telling me that it's something that it's not, or the way that I was taught that my body was my enemy, that I couldn't trust its desires and intuition, that at its core it had received this innately evil gene bent on producing its own destruction. Those years of distrust have led me to this place, skeptical of its every whim and unable to recognize its form when reflected in a mirror. But I'm learning that if I breathe in deeply enough, filling up these lungs that move up and down mysteriously without my forethought, taking in the necessary bits of the atmosphere around me, when I plant my feet firmly on the ground and stretch my arms out as far as they can reach, grasping at the elusive wind and feeling it slide off the tips of my fingers. In those moments, with just the impetus of my own being, my body is no longer a stranger to me. It is home. So over the past few years, it's really been a beautiful thing to examine what it's like to live outside of these boxes that we've been given, the boxes that have been assigned to us. But it's also been kind of a scary thing. Because as much as the boxes restrict us and limit us, there's also that comfort in the box and an idea of where it starts and where it stops. And even though that might not really be true, there's this feeling of knowing and understanding that once you start existing outside of, it can be really unmooring. Until you find some people who are willing to live outside of those boxes with you. So as Charity and I's relationship morphed and we started seeing other people, she met someone new, she fell in love, and they got married. And her new wife, Casey, is now also one of my great friends. And Charity and I changed our relationship from where we called each other spouse to we started calling each other platonic life partner, which is probably the gayest thing I'm going to say all night. But it's been really beautiful to rediscover what it means to be family. Because again, this was a box that had a lot of very specific meaning. Family were the people you were related to, either by blood or by marriage. But redefining family the way we have has been really beautiful. And Charity and Casey, I stood up in their wedding, I'm the godparent to their kids. And it's really beautiful. And it's also been really beautiful because, again, there was family and then there was like everyone else. And it's been really beautiful to discover other ways you can create family, especially with your queer community, with your arts community. And it's been a really beautiful thing. Because, for a lot of queer people, the family that we're born into is not a family that's always supportive of us or accepting of us. So it's really beautiful to have these people in your life that you can call family, and these people in your life that you can turn to no matter what, and the people that you can get comfortable enough to drop some of the titles you've been given, or some of the titles you choose sometimes, because they're safe, or because they're fun to put on. Sometimes they're the titles that have been assigned to us. But there's something beautiful about being able to strip all of that down and be together just fully human in all our beautiful mess. And I wish I had time to tell you more stories about that family and about that community. I could tell you about couches that I've crashed on, conversations that have gone deep into the night, yapping around fires, jumping on trampolines, talking shit in movies, reading in cuddle puddles, iced latte dates, bemoaning crushes on boys and girls and everything in between. We picnic in the parks, we cocktail in the bars, we sing, we dance, and we hum with life. And it really is a beautiful, full, gentle life. As a child, I was afraid of quicksand, worried that this world would suck me in and suffocate me. I've tiptoed through this life, unsure where to place my feet on the uneven landscape, uncertain of where I was allowed to exist. Planting my feet firmly on the ground feels like an act of resistance, resilience, declaring that there is a home, a life to be made here on these pieces of clay that rise above the ocean floor. I strive to lead a gentle life. Not a gentle path. I've never come across a mountain I didn't envision summiting. I'm at home with dirt beneath my painted nails. Gentle in how I choose to exist in the world. Always letting daffodils break my heart with their understated beauty and casual grace. Flirting with sunsets. Obsessed with how they always try to catch my eye. Gathering seashells of memories on the shore and throwing them back into the waves, only to have the tide bring them back to me over and over again. Gentleness never confused for timidity. I'm not done collecting all my scars. There are whole spools of thread I set aside to mend the pieces of my heart that have not yet been broken. I want to drive this life into the ground, to use it all up with no spare parts, leaving behind a threadbare heart, a pool of tears I wasn't afraid to cry, and laughter reverberating off the walls of every space I dared to call home. What if in the end, heaven and hell isn't where we wind up? It's the pieces of us that others carry with them. I want to scatter fragments of paradise on every surface my foot has trod, with one hand holding daring, the other authenticity, skydiving in tandem with no parachute, letting the wind take me where it will. I want to live my life, unconcerned with what it's supposed to be, ecstatic for what it is, never losing my sense of wonder, always wandering wherever the road takes me, looking back on my crooked path, assured in the knowledge that I lived. I truly lived. Thank you all. That's my show.